All right, ladies and gentlemen, in this video, we are going over the Sigma 70-200. This is available in Sony E-mount, but also L-mount as well, which is pretty interesting, but the price is really the big deal and all the rage about this lens right here, because it is significantly more affordable than the Sony GM Mark II. So we're going to be putting it through its paces here today, and we're going to be just running and gunning, shooting some photos, shooting some videos here in the Combat Clinic. And we're here in the Combat Clinic with the owner here, professional MMA fighter.
Ladies and gentlemen, here is fighting out of and representing Burlington, Ontario, Canada. Ladies and gentlemen,
he is handsome, Scott Hudson.
Before we jump into some real-world examples of this lens in action, I wanted to do some rapid-fire questions to get you the answers right out of the gate. Then we'll jump back to the Combat Clinic right after that. So let's get started. Does this lens have optical stabilization? Yes, it does. Is this lens weather sealed? Sigma says it's dust and splash proof, so generally that means yes. The lens doesn't get longer as you zoom from 70 to 200 millimeters, and that probably helps with keeping out the dust and moisture as well. A little rain, likely no problem. Bag it up if you're going out in like a torrential downpour. Can I remove the tripod collar? Yes, you can, but it does require an Allen wrench, so it's not as easy as just like spinning one little screw and then popping it off. This also is probably one of the better tripod collars out there right now. This design is really interesting. It's got little notches and you can feel it jump into that 90-degree position as you move the collar. So this is a sweet little feature that we haven't really seen, and that is included on this lens. How's using the zoom ring? Is it weird that it's on the front of the lens, and does the lens hood interfere? It does feel weird for about 20 seconds, and then you kind of get used to it. I think in the B-roll you might see me grab the focusing ring a few times. The lens hood does slightly block the zoom ring a bit, but it's not really a deal breaker because it's still very usable. I think this is an overhyped feature online, and you still have enough room to get a grip on the zoom ring, no problem there. What's the filter thread? 77 millimeters. What focus is closer, the Sony 70-200 2.8 GM2 or the Sigma? The Sony takes the cake on that one. The Sigma has a close focus distance of 120 centimeters. The Sony has a minimum focus distance of 40 centimeters. Sony does offer the 70-200 f4 macro. That has macro capabilities, so likely the better option if that is the main concern. How does this compare to the Sony 70-200 GM2? Well, I'm glad you asked. So down at the bottom, there are purple shots, like 3 little test shots. The purple is the Sigma. The yellow photos are Sony. All shots were taken at 70 millimeters, and I went 2.8, f4, 0.5, and then f8 on all of the shots I tested out here. All throughout the range, you can see that the quality is just fantastic. Zooming into like 300% and staying on the photo, the shot at 2.8. The quality is great. You can see the texture of the cards. Even at f4.5, it gets slightly better in f8, as they say. f8 is great, and you can expect peak performance there, and we definitely get that. So in terms of like the sharpness and texture of the photos, definitely fantastic there. Let's move on to the Sony 70-200 GM2. Same focal length, same aperture, and it's just as good. I personally can't call out one being sharper than the other. The detail is quite good at f2.8, and then at f8 it slightly improves as expected. You always want to drop down the aperture to get that ultimate sharpness, so there you go. Personally, I couldn't tell the difference whatsoever between the two lenses. Both are excellent, which is quite shocking considering there's a $1,400 Canadian price difference between the two, and that's in a controlled environment. So let's see how this goes, photographing some high-paced action. And I'm going to separate the sections of this video here and just talk about autofocus, flaring, and image stabilization, and then just some final thoughts.
So Scott, tell me, How long have you been training mixed martial arts?
I've been training mixed martial arts for about 14 years now.
And during the week, like you were running classes, all levels, anybody can kind of come and join with any experience? Is that how it works? Or tell me a little bit about Combat Clinic and like the classes that we're running here.
Yeah, so we run boxing, Muay Thai, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and MMA. We also have a women's kickboxing program and a kids program. We run classes 6 days a week. And, 95% of those classes are available to, complete beginners. In this room today, we have professional fighters, amateur kickboxers, and people who have only been training for a couple weeks that are just trying to, learn self-defense and stay fit.
So what are some of the techniques that we're going to be like learning today? Because every day we're kind of learning something and then maybe building on that as we kind of go along. Is that how you kind of operate?
So this week in grappling, we're working on guard passing and we're working on attacks from side control. In boxing, we're working on blocking and countering. And I'm not teaching the Muay Thai class tonight, Bobby is, so I'm not exactly sure what he has in store.
Fair enough. So there's going to be a lot going on today. We're going to run and gun and kind of let Scott do his thing. We're going to try and, show you what is actually happening so that way the photos kind of make sense. But we're going to give this a good little test here in the Combat Clinic in Burlington, Ontario. So let's give it a shot.
So let's talk autofocus, because Sony cameras and Sony lenses are known for being kings of autofocus, and there are a few shots that really surprised me when shooting with this Sigma 70-200. I'll show you some sequences on screen, and anything that didn't get that quick Lightroom edit is a photo that missed in terms of the autofocus. And near the beginning of the class, I wanted to see how the lens would perform in like full range mode. And what I mean by that is the lens will be hunting through the full range to find focus. And I tried this at the beginning and noticed it wasn't as fast as maybe I knew it could be, so a few shots did end up out of focus. This is expected, so later in the evening I started to use that 0 to 3 meter kind of mode on the lens, and it's just searching through a smaller area for focus, and some of the clips and photos you're about to see really impressed me. Let's start with taking photos and just videos of BJJ. Here's Mr. Handsome warming up with the class, and I just grabbed Ricky, the female coach, to do some forward moving movements and get warmed up with us. We got her to do some movements just coming closer to the camera, testing out the Sigma 70-200 to start. We shot 17 photos with the A7 IV, and 2 of them were out of focus. That's pretty impressive considering this fist moved over top of the face. And even checking out this photo right here, the eye detection stays put on the eye, barely shown in frame, and the focus is staying locked on even when using like a large zone focusing area. So I was impressed with that. So similar results with the Sony 70-200. There are 16 shots taken in this sequence and 4 are out of focus, but still very similar results. Most of the photos are locked in on the eye. In this photo right here, like the foot is covering the eye. That Ricky throws up that high kick to the lens and then follows through with some more punching combos as well. They're also covering the eye slightly, and the autofocus is just stuck to her. Just 2 more photos out of focus on the Sony, and again, making that lens hunt through the full range of the lens to find focus. Better performance is almost guaranteed if you just cut down the range a bit, but when you're not sure where the subject is gonna be, a lot of people will just flip that switch to full, and these are the results you can kind of expect.
Like if you guys have ever watched like Canelo Alvarez fight, even when he gets hit, he doesn't get hit. Right? He rolls with the punch. There's like a term, you ever heard the term roll with the punches? It's a boxing term. It's a boxing expression, but it's a metaphor for life. Okay? So when he rolls with this punch, he is going to A, block, and B, take a little bit of steam off that punch. He's also going to load up his left hook. Boom, boom, and that's his counter. All right, so we're here. I fire this left hook, and he fires back. All right, I'm here. Boom. Okay? I'm going to give him a target for that left hook. He's going to block, boom, and he's going to slightly roll his shoulders. Okay? I don't want him to roll so much that he takes his eyes off me. Right? So he's not going to look over here. Right? He can still see me. He's still in a ready position. He's confident that he's going to fire back with some power here. Boom, boom. Boom, boom. Boom, boom. So let's get with our partner. Let's get up against the wall because I don't want you to run away. I don't want this to be an option. He throws that left hook, and I go, see you. I'm in a position where I'm now forced to block, right? This is the least desirable defense because I'm going to take a little bit of damage here. All right, guys, get with a partner, get against the wall, let's get going.
Overall, I was impressed with how the autofocus performed because I was trying to shoot through people kicking or like boxing each other, and there are a lot of gloves just like flying around, but I still managed to capture some nice shots of Scott coaching and holding pads. Like this shot right here, I was thinking of before I even actually arrived, and I'm glad we could make this happen. Scott is facing a black pad, which kind of sucks for some of the light out of his face, but this is what happens when you're just kind of documenting and running and gunning. I didn't have time to set up lights or reflectors or anything like that, so to me his face a little too dark, but what can you do, right? Look at the gloves lined up though, like they're all out of focus. There's so many distracting elements just nicely blurred out of focus in the foreground, and the gloves are flying in and out of the frame, so this is just really good performance all around. Now, we didn't have too much light in the combat clinic, especially once the sun went down outside. We took this photo of Ricky and included the overhead light to see what kind of flaring we can get on the overhead lights, but these are big lights, so maybe this wasn't the most ideal setting to show how well or not well the lens would flare. I would say though, these new lenses we see from all of our core brands in the mid to top tier kind of category, these are near flawless, and when you want some character from these new lenses, you're likely gonna want some kind of diffusion filter on top of these lenses to give your footage a less clinical look. The shot was taken at f2.8 and this one was taken at f8. F8, you notice how the flare around the light is slightly reduced and nearly falls in focus, but it's still pretty minimal on both photos right here. So towards the end of the night, we started to get a little wild running around with the 70-200 and the Sigma 14-24 lens as well. We got really close and personal with that lens. I almost like got hit with a boxing glove. I felt the air while I was shooting with that lens. I was so close. But hand holding the 70-200 on the FX3, pretty darn good, even considering this is a telephoto lens. Ideally, I would have liked to set up a tripod and shoot from a little bit further away, but we would have given up that better composition by doing so. The way the gym was laid out and how I knew Scott would explain things, I said to my team, we got to be in the middle of the action and get close. Thankfully, this lens has image stabilization, and if I wasn't shooting super long takes, you could totally get away with hand holding some of the shots if you stuck to 70 or maybe even 100 millimeters. But this shot right here, Scott's explaining a boxing technique, and the autofocus just sticks with him, and I was pushing this lens out to about 100 or 150 millimeters, and this is pretty smooth. I was just kind of standing there as still as I can. The FX3 also has IBIS, so I wouldn't expect these same results on a camera without IBIS, but still, this is a telephoto lens, not really ideal for hand holding, but could you do it in a pinch? I think you could. If these shots were a little bit shorter in length and I was just chopping them up, I think you could. So to wrap things up here, the build quality is quite nice on this lens, and I think this lens punches much farther above its price point. I brought two Henry's employees with me to help shoot this video, and we were all packing up the gear, loading it into the car, and all of us were convinced, you know, this was a killer lens for anyone looking for that 70-200 for Sony E-mount or L-mount. If you're an L-mount shooter, you'll benefit from the dramatic decrease in weight. The Panasonic 70-200 weighs 1,570 grams. That is a heavy lens, and the Sigma weighs slightly more than the G Master, but the G Master is a big jump up in terms of the price. And as you just saw, it's tough to kind of see the difference in quality, so no matter if you're a Sony or Panasonic shooter, there's definitely reasons to look into this lens for sure. This is one to check out on our website, that's henrys.com. Thanks so much to Scott, Bobby, and Ricky for helping us out with this video. And if you're in the Burlington area, thinking about getting into MMA or just want like a killer workout, pop in to see them at the Combat Clinic. My name's Anthony, and I will see you in the next one.